Hello, all my beautiful Facebook people. Emily Diamond here. Thank you for coming in today. So wonderful to virtually see you. Thank you for being here. I am just in between meetings today, and obviously with the type of work I do, I see lots of different trends and patterns in leadership behavior, organizational culture, and then interpersonal and communication issues that people deal with. A lot of what I do working with high performers in business, whether they be the owners or whether they be senior key staff, always come back to these core things for me, which I call the real leadership work. So it's to do with the psychology of the organization, the psychology of the individual's ability to manage their own emotional state, effectively interact with other people's emotional states, exceptional communication, where people are aligned to the organization's vision, and then of course the practicals, the structures, the rhythms, the strategic plans, the long game, the short game, and all the operating aspects and where we get leverage inside our businesses and inside our communities and families, because most of the leadership philosophies apply across all contexts, and that's why a lot of the time when we're working with leaders, we can find a sneaky way to get a breakthrough in one area, maybe perhaps in terms of team culture or team leadership, might be actually addressing family issues and family patterns, because it's the same leadership paradigms at play. Our interpersonal effectiveness, our structures and systems, our communication systems, and then of course what the intentions and goals are. So I wanted to make sure that today I'm talking about one of the aspects around this real leadership work, and it's really around, for you guys, two areas that come up over and over again in terms of heartbreak and disappointment for business owners and for senior staff in business. And it's these two areas. One is leading by example, and the other is doing all the right things. Okay, so leading by example, yes, fundamentally up and down looks like the right thing to do. Where it becomes really tricky for leadership in the business context and taking leaps forward organization and growing our organizations is the leading by example turning into doing with, doing for, or what I call give then take dynamics. So when we do this work of lead by example, if we haven't determined for ourselves as the leader quite a strong base around our self-worth, our self-esteem, being very clear about what we can expect, what we can command, what we can demand, what our expectations are, how much we should be getting, what is not okay, and what are appropriate corrections and consequences for what is not okay organizationally, the leading by example model ends up becoming a toxic trap for a lot of people. And the toxic trap is around getting in and doing with or doing for, or feeling as if we have to give very specific things before we can receive from our team. So this lead by example is fundamentally a kind of correlated. It works as well as it is correlated to the level of standards, expectations, and clarity that a leader has around what they can expect, what they require, what are the consequences for people not aligning, not fulfilling, being late, letting everybody down, being culturally perhaps inappropriate, not fitting in with the values of an organization. So this leading by example will always hurt us when we aren't solid over here with us, when we aren't 100% straight up and down clear on what I expect, what I command. Because when I'm not certain on that, when we are not certain on that, we then often are waiting. We're waiting unconsciously, right? We're waiting for the employees to show us the standard. We're getting in and doing with and doing for. Organizations that struggle with staff being proactive, this is a big issue. So they might be the employer or the leader or the manager, oh, there's a noisy truck going past, might be going, well, if I don't do, for example, if I don't do every single little thing, I can't expect a high level of performance from my staff. Now, typically, the leader or the senior managers have the highest volume of accountabilities, have the highest volume of responsibility and complexity. So expecting of ourselves particularly the business owners, where there's always more to do than we will ever be able to individually do, expecting us to be 100% compliant and perfect and fulfilled is very, very unrealistic. And of course, high priority actions need to be completed on, but the 100% compliance all the time for the business leader is very difficult. And what we're looking at is when the leader thinks, well, I'm not 100% compliant with everything because their list is mammoth, they will then automatically start to adjust and modify their expectations of staff not being 100% compliant. And there's a big difference. Leaders of organisations have a much higher, more complex variety of commitments compared to employees. Employee roles are crafted and designed so that it matches in with what is appropriate expectation for a person to complete. And this is talking time-based leadership versus result-based leadership. Typically, organisations go, well, based on this amount of time and based on that person's competency, we could expect this amount of result. But when we start to indulge and entertain from an insecure position, the leading by example, we'll start going, well, because I'm not doing everything, I then can't expect them to do everything. And they'll think I'm full of it and that I'm full of BS, and it will corrode my leadership base. Staff aren't really driven by that. Of course, everybody has a wide variety of motivations. However, if staff are clear and you've got that baseline of self-esteem, self-confidence, and clarity, staff aren't able to question your authority and aren't able to start judging you and say, well, because you didn't do that one little thing, I'm not going to do my thing. It's a completely distorted, toxic cultural version of leading by example. So we work within your belief systems as a leader, we work with your values as a leader, and we work very specifically on how you provide correction in your communication skills and work with correcting staff and making sure boundaries are appropriate, like breaking through that BS, building those boundaries, and then continuing to maintain and support people so that they can get the fulfillment from there on. Okay, the second thing is the doing everything right. Okay, a lot of us in leadership, we get bogged down in doing everything right, making sure everything's okay. And for people who are particularly the segment that I work with, where people are usually high performers but are hypercritical of themselves, this area is very paralyzing, where they want to do everything right. And there's a big difference between things being perfect and things being right. And people with that Dunning-Kruger often have that distortion when they're hypercritical. They have a distortion between what is right and functional or workable and then what is perfection. And that needs to be a paradigm shift around allowing things to continue to have momentum. Most of things, their beliefs around things being right or feeling right will stop us over and over again. A lot of us use our feelings about something being right or correct as a sort of a measuring stick, and feelings are a really unreliable measuring stick. I know that we've got our intuition and we have our instincts, and instinctual and intuitive thought are very different to trying to calibrate and assess something's validity with our emotion. We need to use our logic center for that, our executive center for that, the front of our brain, not the brain stem that's in our fight and flight response. So when we do this, doing everything right, we're often using a feeling as a strategy to do decision making, which is always trouble, okay? Even in loving relationships, always use your feelings to make your decisions. We all know what happens when we make all of our decisions from our feelings, right? It doesn't end up well. So we need that mixture of understanding what's intuitive and instinctual thought, which is based on past experience, and then what's the difference between intellectual assessment and logically working something through. The biggest power that people typically experience from a coach in a business and leadership context is, it's sort of funny, it's right there. That's a mirror there, right? And reflective thinking is one of the key change and growth skills that human beings have, which is super exciting. But when we're in our stress response, when we're busy day to day, when we're full up of everything, reflective thought is actually a very uncommon practice. And the reason most people get such a huge breakthrough in their first 3 to 4 months in their company of working with a coach is because the coach actually forces reflection. So they don't force you to sit by yourself and think. They actually perform reflective process with you. So we ask particular questions that we're not asking ourselves or giving ourselves the time to ask because we're busy, we're all on our thing. And that questioning allows for self-reflection. When humans do self-reflection, very powerful things happen. So the only reason I'm able to come to you today and talk to you about these two issues that let leaders down over and over again, which is the leading by example from a low power base, and then doing everything right and having distortion around what's perfect and what's functional. The only reason I'm able to talk to you about those is because of this reflection, okay? This reflection of working with hundreds and hundreds of leaders and allowing them the space to consider, is our behavior really working? What are the thoughts and assumptions that lead me to that behavior? What are the dynamics that cause people to respond in that way? What's the communication actually communicating? The words might say this, but then the behavior feeding back says that my communication's having a completely different effect to what's intended. And that's all the power of reflection, okay? And that a coach facilitates reflection. Of course, there are myriads of self-reflection techniques, and part of what a good coach does is we skill you with resources around how to do reflection independently, and we condition you that way, which is great. I can't tell you, one of my most favorite things is hearing from clients, I'm hearing your voice in my head asking me questions. That to me is the ultimate. It shows that we've gone from conscious to now unconscious, conditioned, patterned, automatic behavior where people can reflect, use different critical thinking strategies instead of emotions to make decisions from. And that's where the real magic and leverage happens, and we get, instead of looping at a particular level, we get that leap forward into that next level. All right, I'm going to jump off. I've got my next meeting to go to, but thank you so much for jumping in today. I hope that was of value to you guys. And if you can see you've got some of those issues going on, or you're going, those aren't quite the thing, but there's something around one of those topics or one of those issues that you know is there for you, block for you, then please just book in to have a call with me. I have me and my team, we do free 30-minute consultations where we identify key leadership blocks, discuss what your long game is, what your plans are, and what's missing either structurally or in communication or in interpersonal effectiveness or in your own personal psychology that's causing the block. We're able to typically identify at least one or two core issues, which is really great, because then you can go and do with those whatever you choose. It doesn't oblige you to do anything with my organisation, but it gives you skills and resources. So please reach out, book in a call. I love learning about people's businesses. I think that's one of my favorite things about the work I do. Is for all these years, I feel like I've just been getting paid to learn, which is just unbelievable for someone like me who highly values learning. And yeah, let me know what topics you want me to discuss. I'm here for you guys, and I'm looking forward to speaking with some of you soon. Bye.